Hello everyone, welcome to this Hangout on Air. I'm Ben Lupton, that is Michael, Michaemus, and we're joined today by Brock and Josh, is it?
Jeff.
Yes.
Jeff. They're from Surge, and we're going to talk about how Surge can possibly integrate with DocPad. This may not be useful if you're actually watching, but because we're just going to talk about it, but maybe it'll be useful for archiving purposes. So we probably need to do an agenda. I've already chatted with Michael a bit about what to discuss, and yeah, we've exchanged the emails. But I guess maybe to get a review of the proposal from yourself, Brock and Josh. Jeff.
Yeah. It's all good. You can call me Jay if you want. It's probably easier. Yeah, sure. So I'll just start with kind of the concept. We released Surge about a month ago, which a lot of people have played with, and it's basically like it's focused on being the easiest way to stream a directory and get it online with a domain. And the registry, or the thing that kind of makes Surge unique to other services is really that like everything is implicitly created. Like your account is implicitly created. You claim a domain, which is implicit. And the reason why that is kind of important in this use case is that you don't have to pre-register for an account somewhere. You don't have to create an app that you then push to. And what this allows us to do, or kind of the opportunity that I see through this, is that we can probably really easily integrate in other systems. And that the reason why it's designed that way is so that it works well with like Grunt or Golf and those kind of task runners without requiring like, well, where I go and I set up an account somewhere. So for us, we're kind of like, as you guys know, we work on our web server, which is a static site generator / server, and it solves some problems similar to DocPad, but it's like a slightly different approach. And there's a slew of other really good similar tools out there, which guys like you and there's of course Jekyll and other ones as well. And what we kind of want to do is think like, okay, how do we build a platform in such a way where we can just really, rather than trying to compete with each other, we really just build a platform where you use the static site generator that's best for the use case that you're trying to solve, right? Or in the case of you guys have a community of people that are using DocPad and they're happy with it and they're productive with it, right? So your community shouldn't need to have to evaluate which static site generator they're going to use based off of how they're going to put that in production. I think that's kind of like the whole premise of what makes static site generators appealing, is that you don't have to attach yourself to any kind of certain deployment option, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to come up with a way that we can offer Surge to rather, instead of just end users, we offer the platform to people like you who are developing static site generators or tools that that you can just make it really easy for your community to get DocPad applications online. So we're still like, we're right at kind of the edge currently where we need more information from people like you or we need an actual real use case to move forward and maybe start building something or exploring what this thing might look like. So I'm not sure if you guys have any questions or if that's clear enough or you want clarification on anything about that. happy to talk with it.
No, that's fine. How about yourself, Michael?
No, it sounds awesome. Yeah, and I think there's a trend towards this. You see like Cloud Foundry and IBM building on top of Cloud Foundry, and like even like really big companies. I forget the name of it. One in New York, a big consultancy. They're now building like this multi-deployment. Like you can choose which cloud you deploy to basically, and so there's this move towards like cloud ubiquity, and Jitsu is doing a lot of work with that too. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. So for us, we're a small crew. There's like 3, 4 people working on Surge, and it's obviously like to really scale, it requires support, right? And there's things that are I think it's difficult to an end user when there's like, I think from a technology perspective, it makes sense. There's the separation between how you put something in production and how you develop it. In practice, when you're developing an application, you kind of want those two things to be tied together, or at least have a cohesiveness, right? And so, so in that respect, I think that there's value to the end user if when they deploy an application that it's not just like this generic black box of like web hosting, that the people on the other side are aware of what tools they're using, they're aware of their workflow, they're aware of like what version of Dogpad they might be using, or what kind of new features there are, and like help guide people to solving their problems, because that's kind of the whole point, right? Is that people using Dogpad are like, okay, how do I take that next step with it? How do I, do redirects or get around cores or whatever? And I think that if you're able to be that person to foster that community, then both that benefits the end user, and that also like benefits you guys in having a solution to for the end user, as well as their whole like, onboarding experience and progression to improving their application is going to be a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it's kind of, there's opportunity here, I think, for everybody to win. It doesn't seem like we have to all build our own static site generators, and we have to all build our own platforms, and we have to like all do this and then compete against each other. When clearly there can be like wins here that benefit everybody, and we can continue to like be small teams working on different components of the system, kind of thing. So I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that. If you want to explore this further, or what your thoughts are on Surge, if you've played with it much. Yeah, I guess I'd open it up to you guys for questions at that point, or at this point.
Ben, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Microphone and mute. Yeah, I discovered Surge as soon as, thanks for that, Michael, as soon as it was released, pretty much. And yeah, the idea of collaborating and working together has always been a part of at least our community. So like, we understand the mission, very important. For us, I guess like, we're probably just happy to start talking about how we can start the integration. Now I've chatted with Michael a bit about it. So initially, when I first saw Surge, I was like, okay, we could write a deployment plugin. So then you can try it, Docpad deploy Surge, right? And then it'll go and run the deployment to Surge right away, as your current Surge plugins already do for other build solutions. So that's like easy enough to do. Now, then, you email me, Brock, and you're like, hey, we have this great idea of like doing up a like a turnkey solution for static site generators, so then they can have their own domain. So like docpad.io, and then people can have subdomains of that, and then maybe people can finally earn some money in the static site generator front. So that was pretty exciting. And then we thought about it, myself with Michael, about, okay, what are the things we would probably need to kind of make this appealing. So I'll give you like a bit of history about the type of deployments that DocPad is currently being used for. So we have just like your very basic DocPad website, which is like a static website. Someone generates it locally and then they deploy it to GitHub pages. I think like maybe Query Engine, GitHub Bevry, Query Engine would be like an example of this. Let me just pull it up. So I'm going to share that in the hackpad at the bottom. So simple, whoops. Simple. So we have that one, that's just a basic static deploy. But then we have like these other ones that are a bit more interesting. So we'll say, go up to dynamic deploys. So then we have that one, and then we have like, say, the DocPad website. So these are two good instances of dynamic deploys. Can you see them in the hackpad?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So for the BL Upton website, there's some interesting things about it, right? So it's pulling in these YouTube videos, this Vimeo stuff, all those stats at the bottom. If you click projects, that's all my GitHub projects. If you click blog, it's pulling in like Medium and Tumblr articles, right? So that's all happening at compile time. So you run DocPad initially, it pulls in all that data, and then it does the deploy. Now, it's then deployed to Heroku, and then DocPad has a option called like regenerate every. So then I said, okay, regenerate every day, so that way the website can keep itself up to date. Now with the DocPad website, so then it'll actually do a regeneration on the server, like on the Heroku server every day. So maybe for like, there's not that much downtime because we still keep the old website up while the new website is generating. But historically, it's been like a fragile thing, because if that build fails, then like you end up in an interesting situation. So you actually do have a risk with this dynamic abilities of the SSG failing, and that's not something people kind of choose an SSG for. But then again, it is an advanced use case.
Mm-hmm.
Now the other one is like the DocPad website. So all this documentation on the DocPad website is actually like a Markdown repository. So, and it's a separate Markdown repository than the actual website. So the way this works is we have two repositories. One repository for the DocPad website code, which is the DocPad code, and then we have another repository containing all the documentation of DocPad. So what happens is the DocPad website will pull in that Markdown repository, so it'll clone it into like the source directory of DocPad, then it'll render it and it'll generate the website. And then what we have for the DocPad website is we have set up, we deployed to Heroku, and then we have like a webhook URL that then we set up a git post hook to then ping the webhook, so it tells the DocPad website to regenerate whenever a change is made to the documentation. So ideally, we like to move away from that and move, because Heroku is really slow. And one of the big benefits I asked initially on Twitter when I found out about Surge was, what's the benefit of this over GitHub Pages? And you guys were like, hey, well, you get a CDN, and it's really easy. So it's going to be a lot faster as well. And I was like, okay, speed's always great, so that's a good benefit. But the issue then, which we're going to have, is, for these more complex things, which is this regeneration. Like, how do we keep these websites still alive with dynamic content being pulled in? I then found there's like a continuous integration software called Circle CI, maybe.
Yeah, that's it.
And what they do is when you push to your DocPad website repo, it can then do a bunch of tests, and then if those tests pass, then you can tell it to deploy to a particular web server. So it can actually run your deployment script as well. Now, that's fantastic. We'll probably migrate to that, but it's a pain in the ass to set up. So I was thinking, like, in terms of what a paid tier of what, or like a more extra, or an advanced feature or whatever of the Surge offering would be like a automatic redeployment feature. So then it's like a webhook that gets set up that then different things can ping to then regenerate the website. And then that way we could successfully move these type of dynamic websites that regenerate themselves to that. Now, there's also another situation that the dynamic features of DocPad are used for, which is like contact forms and admin UIs and things like that. Now, I've chatted to Michael about this, and we think that's probably more going to be like an advanced user thing. I've never needed to use those things before. I think if people are going to implement those things, they should deploy a static website and then hook to like a remote web server that actually has the dynamic abilities, rather than trying to include production dynamic abilities into the DocPad website. So in regards to that use case, I'm not particularly too concerned about it. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think I guess what you're kind of getting at is there a better way to facilitate the dynamic content than just rebuilding the whole world every day kind of thing? So if that was the best approach, I think that it could be set up so that the build only on completion or a successful build will it update. That doesn't seem too difficult. Do you guys have any runtime features, or any features that happen at runtime, or is it entirely static?
No, you're muted again.
Yeah. So DocPad has two. It has support for environments. So you can say this is a production environment, this is a development environment. It has this is a static environment. So by default, you run it and it chooses the development environment. So it loads development configuration, and then certain plugins would then, which only should work on development environment, should facilitate that. So in the development environment, like the live reload plugin actually enables itself. Compilation of various markups or will work, and minification will be off, right? So it's more made for like debugging, and concatenation probably won't be there. When if you run on production, then everything will be minified. Live reload won't be included, and then we also have a static environment, which there's an interesting plugin called Clean URL. So it provides, instead of having like index.html or like hello.html, instead it's just /hello. So that's a plugin, and the way it works is if you're not on the static environment, it just adds routes to the Express web server. But if you are on the static environment, then it'll actually write redirect files. So it'll be like an index.html file somewhere or whatever that then has like a meta tag for redirecting to the other page, or maybe with like a script redirect. So we can actually write most of the plugins, if not all the official plugins, has support for those different environments or targets. So we can say, okay, when we're going to deploy to a static environment, then you include the static version of these dynamic features. So like for Clean URLs, that's a great example. Yeah. There's some third-party plugins that then add things like contact forms. So you install like maybe a SendGrid plugin, and then you can fill out your contact form, and then it sends to like a URL on the DocPad server. For that use case, people can deploy to Heroku. It's not something that I particularly want to officially support. I think it's just like a power user feature. I'm not too fussed about that. Like a small percentage of the DocPad people are probably using that ability of it.
Yeah. I see with things like that, like the contact form, for example, it's certainly tempting to like add those sorts of things in the Surge, but there is like part of the whole approach to static is like you can use the third-party service to do that, and that's kind of to like embrace that. It's kind of a bit of my philosophy on that. As far as like the clean URLs go, Surge already handled that quite well. So even though it's got static, the assets on the system are static. I almost like call it more like stateless rather than static, because at runtime it can intelligently do things for you. So for example, if Surge is essentially indifferent about that trailing slash. If the trailing slash is there and there isn't an index.html file, what it's going to do is it's going to look back a directory to see if there is a HTML file that matches that same word or whatever. So if you went to /foo/, then it's going to go back and look for a foo.html file. If it does find it, then it's going to redirect you there. And it will do the opposite as well. So if you're looking for /foo without the trailing slash, and there is no foo.html file, then it's going to look for a directory called foo and look for an index.html file, and if it does find it, it will redirect it and add that. If that makes sense. But, we're trying to address those little tiny things that pick you up. There's a lot of typical static hosting. And I think that we're reaching a point where like static hosting has been around for like eons now, but the needs are changing very quickly because of like people are using static site generators before now, right? And the other one is like things like a 200.html file will just like serve up any route if we're doing client-side routing. So just things like that. We certainly have the ability to do dynamic things, or I should say stateless, dynamic but stateless things based off of what in the request. So if there are like little things that you want to catch, like allowing posting a form or things like that, we certainly have the opportunity to do that, provided we all agree that it makes sense to do that, right? But to me, that's almost more the biggest problem. It's like, oh, we shouldn't just necessarily do it just because we can. We should be selective about what kind of dynamic or enhanced features should be added. So, like posting a contact form, well, you can do that with Ruby, or you can do that with Google Docs, and maybe it should be built into the platform. I don't know. I think that I'm certainly open to be persuaded in either direction on questions like that. I'm muted again.
Yeah, you're muted.
I keep muting because I'm typing, and then I don't want the typing thunderstorm to come. Yeah, so I think we all see eye to eye on that. Like, if it can be done statically, then it should. Um, it's also, what does, when you release something to the wild, what they do with it is entirely different. Um, so in regards to, like, I guess what we officially want to endorse or support, it's like that static redeployment or the automatic redeployment. That's pretty vital, I guess, to the one of the major benefits of DocPad. I've also included a link, two links at the bottom. So one shows, just while we're on the clean URL subject, so there's if we go into that link, then it'll be like DocPad plugin clean URLs test static. So then we have like some source documents, index special welcome, and then they have like their custom URLs specified at like the top of what they allow. So if you go into DocPad plugin clean URL static, test static source document special, we'll find a document and it has like title special, URLs high and special. So it supports two different URLs for this document. Now that's all fine because if you go into /test/static/outExpected, we generate all the appropriate files automatically. So even if you're deploying to like, whichever static web server it is, we're going to have the correct redirection of that. And that's like, yeah, that was really cool. For that. So like in regards to clean URLs, I have no doubt DocPad's going to handle that correctly regardless which environment it's on. The other link I've added is this runtime route extensions, so of the DocPad website. So this is like a DocPad configuration file. The highlighted section of it is like the server extend event. So it's just like this website configuration is extending the Express web server with a bunch of routes. Now, in regards to the pushover thing, that could be its own web server running on Heroku rather than actually something inside the DocPad website. That's the way I would want to promote it being used if we can endorse the Surge solution a lot better, because it would be way faster for the website to be hosted on a static environment like Surge, and then a dynamic feature that may be accessed a fraction of the time to then be hosted on like a slow Heroku server. But then we also have all these other routes. So these are just like URL redirects, so that we've set up. So an easy access to like our Twitter, easy access to like GitHub issues, GitHub projects, a way to edit the documentation. So if we like have edit in the URL, then it will redirect to the Markdown document in the Markdown repository, so people can easily edit it. And then we also have like just a huge redirects, which is simple like URL mapping at the bottom. So I guess I'm not sure how this would particularly work with a static host about doing these type of redirections, like these route ones, unless we write like a htaccess file if that was an Apache server, and then we do it that way.
I think we're redirect is pretty high on our roadmap, and this seems like a use case that would be perfect for that. So like doing like some sort of, being able to just like specify /articles :id/edit, and if you see that, then redirect to github.com/docpad/ website markdown file kind of thing with the same ID. I think that should be doable with just some sort of redirect rules that allow you to do, blobs or regexes or things like that. And that's certainly something that we've already agreed on is necessary. So we're going to be building that quite soon. Like the other thing we brought up, the clean URLs or that example file that has both /high and /special. Are you guys then like generating both of those files and serving them both?
Yep. So
And-
it,
Okay.
so I'll just share another link, right? Alright, so if we get, okay, hold up. Static. So this is the generated files, source files.
Oh, I see.
Um, So, and then I'll say static environment or static target, right? So docpad generate and static. Now, if we do dynamic environment, so docpad generate. So, and test. So it's going to be the exact same thing. So source. Um, Right. So when we're doing like a normal generation, so it's the same source files in both environments. So when we're doing a dynamic generation, all those routes are added just to the Express web server because we know we have that available. So if you're running like Docker locally, you've got live reload enabled, everything's being served from in memory, then we just use the Express servers. If we do like a static generation, then the clean URLs plugin is going to generate all of these, you know, the various possibilities of what it is with like meta refreshes and whatnot. So it actually generates like a static website that then, you know, has all that redirections. So it's like, that's like one of these things which is like, ah, DocPad's amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah, cool. That's cool. I certainly like. Obviously, we have an opportunity to do something relatively simple, which would be the expectation is that your site is already pre-generated, so you would generate it locally and deploy it.
Yeah.
Or the docpad deploy command can do both of those steps for you. Then the other option is that we can go like another level, which is like your whole docpad source files end up being pushed up to Surge, and then we can do all these other little kind of nice things for you. Like you generate your site every hour or whatnot.
Yeah.
Certainly the option A is obviously quite a bit more approachable, at least to get started with. But maybe it like makes sense for us to have some sort of way of you guys being able to build middleware that you could plug in to the Surge system, so it like detects certain things about a Surge app or a DocPad application and does X, Y, Z to the document. But that's essentially how we already do it with a few other things. So like for basic auth or Thousand Direct work and Force SSL, things like that. So
Bit there, Brock.
okay.
Yeah, so I didn't hear much of what you said.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Well, basically, what I was saying is that like if we're looking for a shortcut to just see how this feels with DocPad, we could build the deploy command in such a way where the compilation happens on the local machine that we're going up to search, right? And that would be like a pretty low risk way for us all to move forward without like investing a whole bunch of time on this. It would basically be you guys would have to find a domain you want to use, point it at our servers, point the wildcard also at our servers, and then we can start fostering something. Then of course, like getting it put into the CLI would be the next step. And I don't know, if you guys are interested in just like kicking the tires and seeing how this could work, we could just get started that way and see where this goes. As for the recompiling feature, obviously that would require us to have source files onto the server. So we'd have to go with like the whole hog version to get that feature working. Provided we have that, the source files, I don't see implementing that being too difficult. It could be something along the lines of like you pass in a flag on your Surge and you say, I want it rebuilt every hours or whatever, and it will just do it for you and report to you if there's a problem. But certainly, like the easiest way to move forward would be to have the local server do the compilation first.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that could all be like hidden from the user, or optional. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? You guys want to move forward and try something out, or you want to do some more exploring?
Oh, you're muted.
And then I pressed the mute button. So either way, we're probably going to do up like a Surge plugin. So if we go into the bottom of the hackpad, I've got existing .pad deployment options. So I've got how we deploy the different ones, right? So
Okay.
Heroku, we just push to the Heroku remote. For GitHub Pages, we install the GitHub Pages plugin, and then we run .pad deploy GitHub Pages. So that plugin will then add that command line action to it, and then that does like a static generation. It also does a it will then deploy to the right setup depending on whether it's a company GitHub Pages setup or whether it's a project GitHub Pages setup. Because it's like if it's a company, then it's master. If it's a project, then it's a GitHub Pages branch.
Yeah.
Then we have like the Circle CI option, which is we just push to our origin, and then it will then clone it. Like it runs like Travis CI, but then it's got this deployment script at the end. Now for Surge, we could just do up like a GitHub Pages plugin, which would take not that long at all, a few days at the most, if not a day. And then it's just .pad install Surge, and then we just run .pad deploy Surge. And it just works exactly the same as like maybe the Grunt Surge plugin or whatnot. I guess like the ideal, or like if we get the automatic redeploy or whatever thing, then it would be like get in. So you can probably still do that. We still use the Surge plugin maybe, but it'll be like on .pad.io login with your .pad Surge account, customize configuration on your .pad site, specify, get a webhook for regenerations, tell GitHub to ping that webhook, right? And then maybe specify a bunch of redirects, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like for that first one, like the easy step, like I know Surge already supports that. That's really, that's kind of like a done deal already. I guess it's more like, okay, if we do that, the turnkey redeploy, that turnkey thing, then it's like, okay, this is one of the things that at least .pad is going to need in order to transition like the more complex websites to Surge, which is something we would actually really want to do. So now I understand though that for this automatic redeploy thing, it's a pain in the ass for you guys, because then you have to be doing the generating on your own web servers, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of doing like what Circle CI does, but with like a whole lot less configuration. So then we just say, okay, deploy to Surge, add some custom configuration to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're exposing there either. Like if we'd be opening up ourselves to
Yeah.
be in RMRF kind of thing, if we ever got a sandbox, so it was
Yeah.
just compile commands or what. I think your biggest I think it makes sense, obviously, to make that plugin or at least like we should start just feeling out how Surge and Dockpad feel together,
Yeah.
and that seems like a low risk way to do that. I think your biggest advantage to using Surge with like a turnkey solution, or even without, or is when you give someone instructions on how to use something on Dockpad, or that you've got a boilerplate somewhere. It's like git clone with boilerplate, it's a documentation website or something. You're going to be able to just have them tell them, okay, when you're done, just type Dockpad publish or Dockpad deploy or whatever it is,
Yep.
and you're not going to have to go like through these setup steps of like, okay, go to GitHub and create a new repo for where you're going to deploy to, kind of thing. And it makes a pretty big difference when you're giving someone a tutorial on how to do X, Y, Z. Um, it makes sense that like you would spend the duration of that content on how to do X, Y, Z, and then like your last paragraph is going to be like, okay, now you can deploy it, right? Um, the problem with like some of these like going with like GitHub pages and stuff is like a lot of it is very easy, but it requires the setup. Or even if like, especially like in the case of GitHub pages, if they don't have Git installed and they don't have a GitHub account and they haven't already generated an SSH key and they haven't already gone through those steps, then you've got like, oh, here's this other article that you can go through with like 50 steps on and explaining what an SSH is like that. So the biggest advantage is really going to be like that like someone will be able to clone a repo and deploy it, and it's going to they'll get prompted for a domain. They don't need to go to a login somewhere to create one. The other thing that we intend to do is bring you guys more into the loop. So when somebody deploys to a Dockpad .io domain or uses the Dockpad plugin or whatever to deploy, then you guys are being notified or you guys are being brought into the loop. So you can see when somebody's having an issue or if somebody reaches out that they're contacting you rather than contacting us, right?
Yep.
Because I think it seems just as likely or more likely that someone's actually going to be running into problems with whichever static site generator. They're more likely to have questions about how to do something with the static site generator that they're using are with the platform itself. Because the platform, like Surge, is like one command, pretty straightforward, just a few things to know, right? So I think that when someone's like, okay, how do I add a dynamic navigation? I just have selected state on my navigation. I think it's going to be like those kind of questions are going to be more common. Or how do I create a blog? Or how do I do X, Y, or Z? So it would also like when someone deploys something, they're going to get a welcome message that you guys get to tailor. That when they reply to that email, that email is coming to you. And these aren't things that you're really currently gets with GitHub pages or Heroku, because if they have to deal with whichever like hosting solution that they get, and the line of communication between you and them is kind of severed, right? There really isn't that channel for you guys to foster that community currently. So, so we're just trying to like connect those dots or like keep that line of communication between you guys and your community like as tight as possible, so that when somebody's trying DocPad for the first time or something, that after they get past Hello World and they deploy that, like they're getting instructions on like what to do next and what articles to read and who to talk to if they're having problems and what IRC channel and whatever to go to. So I think that we can, provided that you guys, we can do this one of two ways. One is that there's the plugin approach. You could build that plugin right now and just deploy to a Surge domain, right? The other thing we can do is if you have a domain for us to use, we could actually even just use the Surge CLI currently as is and use it against your domain and work on creating those connections. And both of those should be pretty low risk on either approach. But that would give people like, oh, they would see their domain show up at .pad.io or whatever you call it.
So does that work kind of like with Cloud Foundry? You do CF API and then you put in like IBM Bluemix, for example, and now you're using their system. So would it be like that with Surge, where you're like Surge API DocPad, and now you're using DocPad deployments, or how does it work?
Yeah, it would work like that. So you Surge currently already exposes that. It's called endpoint, and I'm not sure if it's in the doc if you run Surge or not, but basically -E, if you have like .pad.io as the argument, then that Surge, that deployment is actually going to go to .pad.io server, right? If your domain .pad.io is pointed to our servers, then no problem. It's going to happen. But also that allows us to know, oh, this is a DocPad deployment. So treat it a little differently. Expose these extra features or have your guys' email message go out to them or whatever, right? But basically, yeah, it's like it's separating like the cloud provider from the deployment mechanism. So you could point a Surge deployment, and that data stream is just going to go to another server.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, like the plugin versus just using the CLI. One of the things that we benefit from doing the GitHub Pages plugin is that we get to kind of control how that generated files come out. So there's a couple things that we had to do for GitHub Pages, and so we have control on our end to fix those problems, versus you guys doing more work on your end to get ready for like DocPad specific things.
Right.
So like, that's one thing to consider.
That's a good point. So things like your NoJekyll file, or like in our case, we have a Surge ignore file, and you could put certain paths in that so it doesn't get deployed. Yeah, that's a very good point.
I think it would be beneficial though to have articles on how to do both.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think we can try them out.
Yeah. Well, we can. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to change subjects just a little bit. I think you touched on it in the email about the business side of things. So how this works as a business, if we had like a paid tier involved, how does that work between Bevry and Surge and Surge's current business model and things like that?
Yeah, well, I think we'd want to, how Surge's business model works into it, I don't know, like how Surge is treated compared to DocPad. I'm imagining that your community, if you guys are fostering the DocPad one, people are going to want to use that for DocPad applications, just because they're going to know that you guys have vetted it and you guys are there for things to go bad. As far as like the business side of things go and a paid tier, I'd like to, as much as possible, that you guys make like as many of those choices as you want. So like, provided what you charge for and how much you charge. Um, I think that as much as possible, like that should be your decision because it's your community that you built. We just have to agree on like what a fair I don't know what the term is, split or whatever you want to call it.
Profit sharing. Yeah.
So yeah, so some sort of like revenue share thing. You just have to agree on what's fair. And the way that I look at that is it's not the specific numbers that are important. What's important is that we don't feel like we're doing all this work developing this system and maintaining it and not getting compensated correctly. And you don't feel like you're doing like support for free kind of thing for us either. It's about finding the right middle ground so that you're incentivized to help your customers get on board and get their SSL cert set up and um, like obviously we want people to be like have as much support on their process of using Surge as possible, right? And so for me, it's about finding the right middle ground that you guys feel incentivized to do that, and we don't feel like we spent 2 years building a platform and not, and just not being able to get compensated for it. So think about that. Think about what you guys think is right. We've had lengthy conversations on our end about what that might look like and what is fair, and I think there's a lot of different approaches. Yeah.
So just spitballing on that side, some ideas I had over the night. For DocPad, there's some changes that are probably going to happen this year. Currently, when you run DocPad for the first time, you are asked, hey, do you want to sign up for the newsletter? And then you say yes, and then it can then get your name, your email for it. So we can then have some more personal tracking of what this user is doing. So like when you run DocPad, is sending data to like a helper service, which is then sending that data to Mixpanel. So then we have good statistics of what commands people are running, what plugins people are using, how often they're using DocPad, and those things. Mm-hmm. And then if you're doing it, if you didn't sign up for the newsletter, then we're just going to use like a hash on your MAC address, so we can't identify you. But what I'm considering as a possible move for the future is just to like force everybody to kind of have like a DocPad account, so that way we can actually reach out to the community and understand what they're doing a lot more. Because while people are kind of remaining a bit anonymous or on the outskirts of the community, like we can't really say, hey, look, we need your feedback on this breaking change and things like that. So that's probably going to be something that changes. But then with that change, by having everyone actually setting up an account, we can then make certain deployments, like the Surge deployment, to our own custom domain, like really easy, because then we can say, hey, it's already for this user. Mm-hmm. So that's quite interesting. Now the other thing that in regards to the business side, that's what I was thinking as well. Like with the automatic redeploys, like I understand that that's a pain in the ass for the infrastructure, because then it's like, okay, maybe we need to set up like a digital ocean droplet, which is then constantly like when it gets that hook, it then closes down the DocPad project, runs it, and then if it passes, then runs like the deploy script. Mm-hmm. So, and then for that, then it's like, okay, maybe that can be like $25 a month if you need like automatic redeploys. or something like on that side, and then Surge can just like take a percentage of that. Now it seems like at this stage it's still pretty early for Surge to then say, you know, hey, we should definitely go down that route, or even hey, we should invest all this time in doing that automatic redeploy infrastructure.
Yeah, I think we'd have to see. I think that, I mean, as much as possible, we don't want to build things that aren't going to get used.
Yeah.
So it's just about making sure that there's sufficient demand to justify the effort.
Yeah.
And
So that's yeah, Michael.
More grassroots way too, maybe where if we get everyone signed up for DocPad, and then let's say like paid auto deploys to Surge is going really good, we can maybe introduce the hourly or the daily automatic regenerations from DocPad.io, and that would be the server. So we already have everyone's account on our server, and basically we're running the Surge command every day or every hour, and then that way you guys don't have to do that DocPad specific infrastructure. And we've kind of already at that point we would have already proven it that it's in demand. So that's one grassroots organic way to maybe do that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's like,
as far as collecting emails go, like I feel that with these tools, with these static site generators, we should really be like encouraging people to deploy like right away as soon as they like create their application. Like what that does is it really relieves that like launch anxiety is like, oh, is this done now? Can I deploy this yet? Or I think, at least in my experience, there's like, that's always been a really big step, and that comes with a lot of anxiety of like, oh, okay, when is this ready to be deployed? And I think that whenever I've deployed right from the beginning, it's just like completely removed that problem. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I tell people about it and I share the URL and I tweet about it, but like when I create a project, I deploy right away. And like I would encourage you to encourage people to do the same thing. But in that case, like that could be the mechanism for collecting emails. So when somebody deploys to a DocPad domain, like you get that we push that into your MailChimp list or however you want, where you want to put that. I don't know, but to me that would be like a natural way where like the user creates a new application, they deploy it, they get prompted for their email, they put it in. I guess like you ask them if they want you to be on the newsletter or whatever. But you're going to have, if you're wanting people to encourage people to get a DocPad account, then that seems like a natural way to do that, provided you guys are comfortable with that. But just something to think about, like we don't have that. I mean, it seems obvious to do that. If we're going to host DocPad applications, it would make sense that you guys have access to your list of customers and you can interact with them. You can reach out to them and you can let them know when there's a new release of DocPad, and you can let them know when there's a new feature that they can take advantage of, and here's the video on how to use it, kind of thing. And like that, to me, like that is the service that that's the service that I want users to have. And at the same respect, it doesn't really make sense for that to be a Surge thing, because developers aren't spending their time interacting with Surge. They're spending their time interacting with the static site generator. And that's where they're going to get tripped up, and that's where they're going to have questions, and that's where they're going to want to know what the new features are. And so it's something like we're trying to do this with heart, but we would prefer to start with somebody not ourselves, because we don't want to build things based off of our own criteria, because it can be we can easily mislead ourselves. So, so to me, like DocPad would be perfect thing to kick these tires and figure out what fair revenue sharing looks like, figure out what the proper abstraction point is on like how much should Surge do and how much should DocPad do, how the integration with the CLI would work, things like that. So, so yeah, I mean, that's kind of all I got to say about that. But I guess what I'm really getting at is I think that the act of putting the application in production, I think, should be the mechanism that connects you to your customer, basically, and going like, okay, this DocPad customer, they're real, or this person, they're real, is probably the wrong term. They're committed to using DocPad for a certain problem, and therefore you and them should be like connected together so that you can help them out. And if they like want to pay you to get problem solved, then that should be doable, you know. Where right now that seems like a really big challenge, and that's like for you guys, for us with HARP, and like all these other static site generators are probably have the same sort of problem where people are deploying to GitHub pages, and then they're like, okay, that was great, but now I need an SSL cert, and which means now I have to reevaluate my hosting provider, and I have nobody to help me through this process. So how am I going to get this done? And now I'm like starting from scratch kind of thing. And so I kind of want to solve that problem so that when somebody uses DocPad and they go, okay, I've created this new project and now I've deployed it. Now there's somebody there to hold my hand through any problem that I might have moving forward. And that as I progress, and now I need redirects, I know who to talk to. Now I need SSL cert. Okay, I know who to talk to. Now I need, you know, it should be a natural progression, not these like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Now I got to reevaluate my hosting provider, and now I need to talk to somebody, like find somebody who knows how SSL certs work, right? So we're really like, what we're really trying to do is like remove that disconnect between library authors and the people using these tools. Right? Sorry, that was a bit of a rant.
No, yeah, it makes sense.
You've got so it was a bit of a rant, but no, it was useful. For the I guess the options going forward, right? I guess it is. I think everyone's decided, okay, implementing that basic Surge thing as it is a good idea. Then the next step, so that's like step 1, implement the Surge plugin as it is. Step 2 would then be, okay, let's try and set up like a docpad.io domain. And then that seems like at this stage it would be like a fork of the existing like Surge.sh solution that then is pushed up on that thing, and then we manage it all. Or is that going to be something where it's just like a Surge.sh? Like, I guess there's 2 ways to go. One way is like we fork it and we do the databases and order that, and then the other way is then we just log into like some control panel with Surge, and then we say, hey, set up this Surge instance for DocPad with the DocPad branding and whatnot.
Cool. I would for the customer or for yourselves?
Well, it could go. Well, I mean, so for ourselves. So like there would be, in regards to how do we set up like the the docpad.io solution, because it sounds like it can go two ways. One way is we have all the resources of Surge, and then we set up our own instance, and then if people want new features, and we implement it in our fork, and then we say, hey, Surge, do you want these these features back in your source repo? The other option is then we just then talk to you guys, and then we say, hey, look, we need these features, and can you implement it? And we manage everything through you. So then we just say, okay, sign up for a DocPad instance of Surge, with our branding, and you guys handle the databases and all of that. So it seems like there's, in regards to the way that relationship could play out, it seems that either because right now it seems for Surge, it's only the command line tool is available. It doesn't seem like the Surge infrastructure is on GitHub or is open source. It seems like that's still closed. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Well, that's not entirely true. It's about, I'd say it's about 60% open source, but we just haven't reviewed all the repos.
Yeah.
So it
seems
there's a lot of trade-offs to if we were to give you guys the code and you run it on your own infrastructure. Now you guys are spending your energy running infrastructure.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Now there's a delay between any feature that we implement and you guys getting it stood up. And so as far as I think you guys are a small team, we're a small team, that probably isn't the best approach. Or I should say, that's an approach that isn't going to manifest itself into a benefit to the end user, right?
Yeah.
So if you guys are spending all that energy, you're doing it not for anything that's going to benefit you. So
yeah.
I think that and plus every time we roll out a new data center or a new point of presence, then pretty soon you're maintaining your own seat, right? Which is a lot of work. So I mean, as far as the answer to logging into something Surge is really, we haven't committed yet if we're going to really involve the browser very much in Surge. I kind of like that it's a CLI tool. It makes iteration pretty quick. That there's we use the browser for certain things like password reset or invitation to a project if people are collaborating. But that's only because when you open up an email and there's a link to hey, accept this invitation to collaborate on this application, it kind of just has to open in the browser. But apart from that, we want to keep Surge as thin as possible. We don't want to blow it up into this big crazy application that does all these things for you. You want it to kind of be the silent hero in the background kind of thing, doing the heavy lifting. But people should feel like they're interacting with you guys in the DocPad platform and getting instructions on how to do cool stuff on DocPad. And deploying is just one of the 20 or 30 things that are useful to that person, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So with that said, obviously so what we do with Surge is we get Slack notifications when someone deploys, right? So we see who's deploying what, and we get a sense of activity on the system, and we can just click on that on someone's email address and send them an email right from Slack. And it's a really simple approach, but it's been effective so far. I think what's missing from that is I don't think Surge is going to be something that sends out. I think it's going to be very the email they give you will be all transactional. Hey, you just created this application. So and so just accepted your invite. this application, but not like newsletters and things like that. I think the newsletters should be like coming from DocPad, coming from Harp, coming from whatever. I don't think that like it just doesn't feel right to me for that to be like a heavy sort of thing that Surge does. It was like the engine, yeah, the user interface, like Harp and DocPad.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that what we want to do is achieve this with mostly with like hooks. So like if someone deploys to a DocPad application that that's messaging your guys' Slack channel, that just happened, or that we push their email address into your MailChimp if they've accepted being sent newsletters, things like that. That's my vision of it. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way it has to be. But to me, that is like that's what strikes the balance of like, hey, we're spending our effort doing like making Surge better. You guys are spending your effort making things better for your community, and your community has now a channel to getting more help and to getting their application like moving forward, kind of thing.
Yep. All right. So I guess so right now, is there anyone who is running like their own custom domain of Surge?
Is anyone running their own custom domain on Surge?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
So,
we got.
no. So I mean, like in terms of like a static site generator, like is there like a .pad.io setup already happening somewhere?
No, and there isn't. Not quite like that. You can actually create this yourself. If you have a domain, a custom domain, you point at Surge, and you also point the wildcard at Surge, then you have your own platform, and you can deploy to your own subdomains as much as you want, and you can even invite people as collaborators. Now, the functionality that we don't expose is you the ability to open that up to the public the way Surge.sh is, right? So the way that Surge.sh is set up is that anyone in the public can deploy to a subdomain on Surge.sh provided it's available. And if you run the search command, you're going to get a randomly generated subdomain that we will suggest for you. Now that is at its essence, that is the functionality that we want to pass off to DocPad, and no one else is doing that right now. But this is the next evolution in what we want to do with the platform. So if you have a domain, and it doesn't even have to be docpad.io, you could just take any domain. And point it to our servers, and we could get started on like kicking the tires, and we don't even have to tell anybody about it initially. We just use it between you guys and us, and just like start seeing how it's going to work or how it's going to fail. As soon as possible. Would be, find the kinks basically.
Yep.
I'm running a bit out of battery here soon, so we should.
Yeah, that's fine, and I'm sure you guys want to get back to your hockey as well.
Yeah, that's
actually catch some of it. All right, yeah. So I think that's all good. So I've added like a bit more about what our ideal is. Like in terms of what it is, and then maybe hold up, DocPad users then sign up via Bevry's DocPad instance of Surge. They can then specify custom domain names, automatic deploy book, whatever else. Right, so that's like our, I guess, our ideal for like a good service, more like what it could be. This is probably paid, $25 a month. Surge and Bevry take their percent of it. So I guess like that's the ideal situation. For us, something that works like this, it keeps like our overheads really easy. It's good for the user. So it's like, okay, I'll probably just maybe, yeah, well, anyway, you can probably read it. Now, that's like a big lot of development and investment at this stage, I think, for where Surge is at. And you guys want to know, hey, we're not going to be developing this for nothing. And we also want to know that, hey, we're not going to commit that much at this point, unless our users want it. So I guess for action items leaving this, I'm going to chat to some of the bigger DocPad clients or like users of it, so like different web development firms that are pumping out a few DocPad websites, and just be like, hey, if we could set this up, would that actually be of interest to you? And then maybe if we can then say, hey, look, the DocPad community has a definite market for this, then that's really beneficial. At this stage, I think people can just probably deploy directly to Surge as it is and get their own Surge.sh, domain name. I don't think there's any need for us to invest right now in like a docpad.io or any other, DocPad branded domain for that yet. Until we actually hear back from the community, hey, this is something we want to do. So I mean, like in terms of inside Bevry, we still have like a lot of decisions to make in terms of, okay, what would people actually pay for? Is this something that we could earn a lot more benefit from than just making the user a bit more happy and then adding more things we have to maintain on our own side. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that list looks pretty good. I think like all of it's very approachable. The most challenging thing would be redeploy hook, which is something that you would expect to monetize anyway. So,
yeah.
So it seems like we could defer that. And yeah, those action items look good to me.
Okay. Cool. And then, hold up, and I'll say Bevry gets back to Surge on whether the community wants that. Because, like, as well, I think there's no point investing in all that infrastructure for the automatic deploys now, I guess, unless other SSGs also want that feature, and it's like a very highly demanded feature, or unless there's a way to monetize it to. So I think they're probably the two requirements for maybe that feature happening, which is other SSGs really want it as well, or we can actually fund it, like it is a funding option. So I think earlier I said it could either be crowdfunded, or we just prove there is a market, or there's just like a big demand for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's just coming up with that proof in the meantime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. Cool. All right. Enjoy your hockey, Brock and Jay.
Yeah, it was great chatting with you guys, and we'll see where this goes. I think the key is we should just move forward in ways that are as low risk as possible, and then see where it goes.
Cool. Anything else you want to add, Michael?
No, I think it's a great product, very timely, and I wish you guys the best of luck. Hopefully we'll be working together pretty soon.
Cool.
All right.
Great.
All right, now in the broadcast now. See you, everybody.
All right.